The Iron Game Chalk Talk podcast is brought to you by the following sponsors: EliteForm.com, IgnitionAPG.com, Play USA at PLAEUSA.com, and Sorinex Exercise Equipment at Sorinex.com. And now, the Iron Game Chalk Talk podcast. Welcome to Iron Game Chalk Talk with your host, Ron McKeefery.
Every time our athletes walk into this weight room, they're going to be pushed to the max.
Let's go! Everything you got!
On this podcast, hear Coach McKeefery straight talk about training, featuring the top strength and conditioning professionals from around the world. And now, here's your host, Ron McKeefery.
Hey guys, welcome back to Iron Game Chalk Talk. I'm your host, Ron McKeefery. This is episode number 148. Excited to bring a buddy of mine to the show today. John Mitchell is the head strength coach, offensive line coach at Corpus Christi Veterans Memorial High School down in Texas. I wanted to bring him on. Had a chance to speak at multiple clinics with John, and always does a fantastic job. Really wanted to dive into some of the leadership and team building things that he does. I think he does a fantastic job in that area, as well as just the logistics of managing so many athletes and at the high school level. As you guys have heard me say on the show several times, I think it's one of the areas that we need to put the most focus on right now with our professional organizations, as well as just the body of strength coaches. The amount of jobs that could be created, the opportunities, if we put a strength coach in every high school, I think is critical. And so we get into that. We talk about that quite a bit, as well as those leadership things. And I know you're going to get a ton out of this episode. Before we do, though, I want to make sure we recognize our sponsor for this show, EliteForm. EliteForm's been with me since the very beginning. They're a company based out in Lincoln, Nebraska, velocity-based training platform where they use three-dimensional cameras to track that. And, again, you've heard me say so many great things about them. I can't say enough fantastic things about them as a company, but more importantly as people. Skip and Avery and everybody, just top-notch individuals. We're going to get Skip on the show soon to talk a little bit about velocity-based training and some of the things that they're doing. But they, to me, were the originators, the ones that were doing it before anybody else, and they're still doing it in a way that makes it as non-invasive for the user as possible. And so if you have not started following them on Twitter, make sure you do that. So at elite_form, follow what they got going on. There's a great video here of what Nebraska is doing with their athletic performance lab, and they're on the cutting edge, in my opinion, and just a great group of people to learn from. So follow them, check them out. If you're in the market for velocity-based training, definitely reach out to Skip, and you won't be disappointed. I promise you that. Lastly, Ask Coach Max going really, really well. About 10 episodes in on this year. And again, if you're interested and would like to send a question in for me to potentially answer on the show, go to www.askcoachmac.com, scroll to the bottom, and click send a voicemail or start recording there at the bottom. And just leave your voicemail right there. Leave your question on, introduce yourself. And again, it's a way for me to give back to the community in a new way, and real excited about the direction of the show. Want to get to this episode with John. Sit back and enjoy it, and we'll see you on the other side. All right, guys, got a good buddy of mine with us, John Mitchell, strength coach down in Texas. And I wanted to have John on the show. I've gotten a chance to listen to him quite a bit speak, and does a phenomenal job every time he does. I always walk away a better strength coach. And so wanted to have you on the show, man, talk a little shop. Appreciate you coming on.
Hey, man, appreciate it.
John, kind of go into your story a little bit, kind of how you got into strength and conditioning, just the Reader's Digest version of that, and then what's led you to your current role.
Really, it's a thing that I've always been interested. Even as a kid in high school, I enjoyed the weight room. At one point, my high school coach asked me and a friend of mine if we would start to work with the junior high kids, because that was back in the day when they weren't allowed to do it. And so from then, I just kind of learned that's something that I enjoyed. First year of coaching and teaching, I was in Austin, Texas. So knowing that I didn't know very much, I went over and talked to Mad Dog and asked him if I could intern for that summer. And he was gracious enough to allow me. And spent the summer with him and guys like Donnie Mabe, and that really helped getting started, learning off, getting off on a good foot. So that's kind of how it all got going.
Awesome, man. And talk a little bit about your current role.
Current role right now is I'm the offensive line coach, or one of us, and then I'm going to do all the strength and conditioning for the programs here at the high school. In Texas, we do have athletic periods. So the way it's broken down is first period, I will work with football and baseball, freshmen, and that's who's in that period. Fourth period, I'll work with varsity basketball, varsity baseball, and then football. And then seventh period is when it gets crazy, because I'll have wrestling, volleyball, softball, girls track, boys track. So it becomes kind of a fun county fair type deal.
Jeez, yeah. Well, I would imagine that impact of working with that high school coach and that when you're going down and working with the junior high school athletes probably was impactful in your reasoning for choosing high school over maybe college or maybe other areas. Why did you choose to stay the high school route when there hasn't been, when you're talking, you're piecing together, being a position coach as well as a strength coach and all that?
I think that the great thing about high school is, number one, I think everybody's built to work with a certain age group. It's kind of like teaching. Some people are great with elementary kids. I couldn't do it. I don't have that, whatever it is. Junior high, I'd probably be in prison because I'd strangle some kid. But I think the amazing thing about high school is to watch a kid come in as a freshman and watch their body mature as they become a senior, and also watch them mature as a person and a human being. And I think as coaches, that's one of the greatest things, is we get a great opportunity to help mold these kids. And I think the great thing about being a strength coach in that is when I go talk to them, they know I'm not offering playing time. There's no reason that other than my interest in them, that why we're going to discuss things and try to help them out. And I think that's a big avenue that I really enjoy.
Absolutely. One of the things I always talk about on the show is, advancement for our profession and our career. I think what needs to happen is that we need to find a way. We need to be researching as organizations how to place a strength coach in every high school. I think there's a tremendous amount of liability there. I think there's a tremendous amount of not a knowledge gap, but just just some places they're not as fortunate to have a guy that works as hard as you do. And so at best they're an English teacher and then a sport coach and then a strength coach. What needs to happen for there to be a high school strength coach at every high school? I mean, obviously the money factor is the reason why there's not. So what's a creative way for that for us to find funding for those types of things and then put strength coaches in every high school?
Funding, I don't really have an answer for that. That's way above my pay grade. I know one of the things that is education. Not only education of the coaches, but education of the public of what we can do. This is my first year at a new high school, and this is our first year of a high school period. And in the area, I'm basically the only coach that does what I do. So it's been a huge learning curve, not for me because I've done this at other schools, but for the other coaches of what having a strength coach can offer. And I think in the beginning, a lot of them are very hesitant. Coaches usually don't like to give up control. They understand that if they lose, they're the ones that are fired, not me. And so over time, they've become very accepting of my role here. And it comes just to benefit their programs. And I think now what turns around is when other coaches at other schools start to see that, that's when they start to go, we want something like that.
Sure.
And so I think number one is the education of what we do. I think one of the things we're fighting is for so long it's just been done by somebody. And, just somebody that just, I was the big guy, so I got the weight room. And I think a lot of times that's what turns out. And so the public just goes, well, we have somebody, why do we need somebody else? And so understanding the difference between just having somebody there and then having somebody that really has a passion for it and starting to see the benefits of that.
Right.
I think are a big thing.
No, I couldn't agree more. And I think that's, like I said, I think for us, until we start kind of really demanding that information to be able to arm ourselves with, statistics and things along those lines, it's going to be a continual loop there. And I think it's a lack of advancement. I think I think we're getting to a point where the market is getting so saturated that we need to find additional jobs. And to me, that's the most evident place to be able to do that. But, in that time, in your career, I'm sure you've made lots of mistakes with these athletes. You maybe not, but me, I've made a lot of mistakes. What's probably been the biggest mistake that you've made as a strength and conditioning coach, and then how did you learn from that?
Oh man, what's one that I'll admit to? There's been a long list. I think one of the things early on is honestly not admitting when I wasn't sure, and then just going ahead with something that maybe wasn't the right thing. I've been lucky enough that I haven't ever gone to the point that a kid got a big injury. But I think one of the things is understanding the differences between the sports. Maybe not necessarily training a baseball player like I would a football player. Understanding there is a difference between a female athlete and a male athlete when it comes to recovery. And that's probably the biggest one is early on when I first started working with the female population is, they could do the lifts the same as the guys. We could work with the same percentages, but not understanding their body was going to take a little bit more to recover. And so that took me a little bit of adjusting to get used to. I think, I hope not that I may have burned out a couple of kids early on, but I will say we're looking back, they're probably lucky enough to bring them back in. And so that's probably going to be the biggest one is just being willing to admit, hey, I'm not sure, and then go seek advice on that.
Absolutely. I think that's one of the that's just maturity as a coach, right? You think you know it all, and then as you get older, you figure out that you don't know it all. You're just starting to ask the right questions. What do you think is, if I'm coming to you to visit, what do you think is the most unique aspect of your program? I mean, what's John Mitchell do differently than maybe everybody else?
We're gonna work at a fast pace. We run a wide open offense. Just for instance, yesterday we were hitting up to 80-90% on cleans. We got 6 sets done in 6 minutes. We were working with doubles. When we got into squats, we got 7 sets of squats and we got it done in 9 minutes. Everything's going to be on the clock. It's something I got from Yancey McKnight, but we're going to do a lot of quick turnarounds. And we're going to get after it because that's what I expect the kids to do on the field. Other thing is we're going to do, like this morning in the morning workouts, it's all band work. Tomorrow we may do kettlebell work. And so we're going to be multidisciplined. I may not have the best in any area, but early on the best compliment I ever got was Coach told me, he said, man, we squat like y'all squat, we clean like y'all clean, but your kids just tend to be just kind of strong all over. And he said that's tough to battle. And that made a big impact on me that sometimes it's not the individual number, but I want to develop a kid that's well-rounded because we might not have the fastest.
Right.
And so if I can even out the equation across the board, that gives us a better chance to win.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I've heard you speak a couple times now, and one thing that you and I share is just that building that kind of 360-degree athlete, and really focusing on leadership and focus on, developing character. And I know you've used a lot of non-traditional methods to do that. You've taken them off site. You've used lots of different strongman type elements and things like that. Talk a little bit about, bringing some of those elements into your program and things that you do from a leadership perspective.
From a leadership role, number one, before and after school, when the kids work out, I'm in there with them. It's not my time to ignore them and get my workout, but I'll jump in and do their workout with them because I want them to see, hey, he's willing to do it with us. Every morning when I put the board up, write the workout up, you try to put a quote up there that I've seen. Kids make fun of me on Twitter because I've only got like 15 friends. Well, I don't tweet. I said, to me, all I use Twitter for is to get quotes from different sites.
Right.
And I said, otherwise, nobody cares what I'm doing throughout the day. And so try to utilize that and just try to plant little seeds along the way that if you have a better person, you got a better athlete.
Great.
And that makes your job better. And so as far as the non-traditional stuff, man, I had a coach ask me the other day, he goes, do you just make all this up? I said, well, I can't say I make it up. Let's just say I've adapted, and so I'm always trying to look for some little thing to kind of make training different, because I try to keep it interesting for the kids. Mm-hmm. I don't know if they've got any shorter attention span that I do, but I hate just doing the same thing over and over. And so I always try to bring in new things and keep things exciting for them.
I think one of the best things that I always, I talk about this quite a bit, is when we're dealing with our athletes and our coaches, and I introduce something different or new or outside the box, and it's, the guys are always like, they'll, oh man, where'd you find that? Or, oh man, where'd you, I'm going to take your internet away. You come up with too many things. I think that's one of the best compliments, when guys come in. I mean, I think it's one of the best things that can happen, because it's much better them coming in and saying that kind of stuff than it is like, oh man, we got to do this crap again. You got to keep it. It's one of my principles is variety, and I think it's part. Where do you find? I mean, where do you come across this information?
There's a lot of different websites that I'll look on. Of course, the NSCA website I do a lot through Facebook. The great thing is a lot of coaches get on there nowadays and start posting things on there. I look like resistancebandtraining.com. Guy out of Minnesota does a great job. That I get a lot of things from him. Of course, Dragon Door with the kettlebell work. And so those are a couple of good things. And then honestly, sometimes I'll just get on YouTube and just start searching random words that I want to look at, and sometimes I'll get one exercise and say, well, I don't particularly like that, but maybe if I put a band on it,
right,
we adjust that. There's the new Z-Jacks with the pole and everything. Yeah. And, that interests me. Only problem is I don't think I could do any of it to demonstrate it. And so, it's YouTube's probably one of the biggest, but, just talking to guys like you, going to, spend a little time with Donnie down at University of Texas sometimes. Just kind of sometimes just take a day and go to another school and watch them.
Right. What in your career, I mean, you've had lots of different advice and things given to you. What do you think is the best piece of advice that you've ever received?
Oh, man. There's been some great advice. I think one of the great things is that summer that I spent at the University of Texas is Donnie and Mad Dog would spend a lot of time not just talking to me about training, but just talking to me about growth in this profession. And one of the things that Mad Dog said was, he said, you're just going to have to learn to be true to what you do. He said, you're going to run into different situations. You're going to be in charge of the weight room, but you're not always going to be in control. And so understand, you rent that weight room out from the head coach. But what you got to do is find ways to be true to what you do and then work under the constraints that he gives you. And I think that's one of the big things, because I've been at schools where the head coach, once I got there, things changed, and I'm a big platform guy, and he said, don't drop the weights. Well, it's real hard to do snatch and set it down softly. And so just learning to be true to what I do and just look at it as a challenge to adapt, and I think that's the secret of this whole profession, is to learn to adapt.
I agree with you 100%. With having so many athletes and so many kids come through your weight room, and different teams, and you're one person, I would imagine, and the whole deal, logistics and all that, plays a big role, especially when in a class block. What's a typical session look like, from a logistics standpoint, and then how do you run that many athletes through? What's the size of your weight room?
It's pretty nice size. It's a brand new school. I would say it's somewhere around 2,000 square feet, 1,500, 2,000. I'm horrible with estimations like that. What we have is we've got 24 racks.
Okay.
And so we got 12 two-sided racks, basically 2 rows. Typical day, during a fourth period yesterday, I had football and basketball in there. Now, football, they're kind of rolling. They know the drills. They know what we're doing. We'll go, half the group will be inside, and then half the group will be outside working agilities. Midway through the period, we'll switch.
Right.
Basketball would stay in there the whole time. Luckily, the basketball coach is there. So what I'll do is I'll give them, I'm going to do command with the varsity, with the football. Basketball, they're going to have a list of what to do, and their coach is there to do it. And then I'm just kind of going back and forth. Anything that I see that needs to be corrected, man, it's going to be real quick. We'll get after it. 7th period, it gets a little bit dicier because that's when I've got more of the females that aren't used to the weight room. You know, the hard one was track that came in. And with them, you know, I had these athletes coming in that were athletes.
Right.
And I mean, they were, but in the weight room, they had no idea. And the biggest hurdle, no pun intended, but the biggest hurdle with them is just fear of the weight room.
Right.
And so what we'll do is we started with just, we're going to snatch with just the bar. And I don't care how ugly it is. And so really just learning, don't progress them until I see their comfort level raise.
Right.
And then I'll take my other groups. And again, by now they know the drill. So beginning of the year, I have a different story because, you know, but sometimes it's just, all right, this may not be the best deal, but everybody's going to do the same workout today because it's the only way we're going to get it done.
Right.
And then as time goes, let them branch off.
Now, they walk in and they, you know, I mean, are they going straight to the platform? Are they going through a group warm-up? Are they?
Really, since I've got 45 minutes, you know, number one, this is South Texas. They warmed up walking to class. Today it's 85 degrees outside. We're going to have a standard warm-up every day we get here. We're going to go 6 overhead squats, 6 push-ups, 6 pull-ups. Yeah. You know, then they know, get the bar loaded, ready to go. We're always going to start on the platform. And then we're going to get going from there. But usually by then, they're pretty well done, ready to go. Volleyball is going to take one extra step, as they're going to do plyo jumps before we get started. Just because, you know, volleyball, we need a better vertical from our girls. And so we're going to do that first while they're fresh, and then they're going to come over and we're going to lift. Sometimes track, they go do their own workout. But with football, man, we're going to do 6, 6, and 6, and then let's go.
Yeah. Yeah. You mentioned you know, a lot of websites earlier. What about, you know, kind of finish the show with some from different tools and resources? Give us a book, maybe inside strength and conditioning and one outside of strength and conditioning that you recommend.
Oh man, 2 of my, you know, I'm digging into your book, enjoying it a lot.
Appreciate it.
Another one that I really liked was Cal Dietz with the triphasic stuff.
Yeah.
Which has been interesting. It's kind of hard to adapt for the high school environment just because I've got a short time. But I've liked that one a lot. Outside, man, there's a couple of great books that I've read. One of them I like is My Utmost for His Highest.
What was it?
My Utmost for His Highest.
Okay.
By Oswald Chambers. It's a religious book, but it's broken up into a daily reflection type thing. And I think the thing I like about that is he always puts the impetus back on you. How are you going to change? What are you going to do? And I think it's easily to adapt into what we do as a living. And, you know, how can I change to make the change happen around me that I want?
Sure.
And so I think that one's been a real big one that I've enjoyed.
That's a great one. I'll have to check that one out. Any apps that you use with the athletes or for your own productivity?
You know, for my own, I was kind of around when I got started, but there's a website called Strength Tracker.
Yeah.
And so it's a real basic, easy to use program that I can load the kids' weights. I'm real big on percentages. And so I can type up their workout. It spits out their percentages. And all of a sudden all they got to do is worry about the numbers.
Yeah.
And so I can come in and tell the kids we're going 73% today. And they don't freak out because it's a weird number. But hey, just look at the sheet. There it is. Put that on the bar and let's go.
That's
and
great.
So that one saves me a lot of time. And so also it spits out, a testing sheet that will rank the players according to body weight. And, you put that up on the wall, and now you're going to start some arguments.
Right.
Well, no, I'm better than you. It's not that says. And to me, as long as it's good-natured, arguments are good. That's the beginning of a little bit of a competition.
No doubt. No, that's what that's the reason why they're there, right? They love to compete. They don't always love the weight room, but they love to compete.
Yeah.
Well, buddy, I know you got to get going. You got to go to right to class. But man, I really appreciate not just the job that you do, but how you do it and the friendship over the years and just learning from you, man. And so I really appreciate you coming on the show.
Hey, man, I appreciate you having me and everything that you've been doing for us.
That's it for this episode of Iron Game Chalk Talk. Thanks to this week's guest as well as our sponsors for bringing this episode to you for free. Make sure to check out ronmckeefery.com where you can join our mailing list, find the show notes, including all the links and resources mentioned, and information about Coach McKeefery's other products. While you are there, please join Coach McKeefery in the comments section thanking our guest for sharing. If you haven't subscribed to Iron Game Chalk Talk on YouTube or iTunes yet, make sure to do so. Comments, ratings, and reviews are always welcome. Coach McKeefery can be found on Twitter at @RMcKeefery, on Facebook and YouTube at /Ron.McKeefery. That's it for this week. Be sure to check back next week for another great episode of Iron Game Chalk Talk.